there's an incredible value for others, a love for others, that is where people just thrive.
Well, good morning. It is so good to be right here with all of you. I'm joined by two Davids, two very good friends of mine, and so I want to welcome them to the show. They're your guests here today. So we got obviously David Craig, as you guys know very well, but one of our great friends, David Leis. Welcome.
Well, it's great to be here.
How you doing?
I'm doing terrific, and you know, it's just very moving in many ways to be on a program called Thrive that links back to Leon Fontaine and all that significance.
Absolutely. There's a lot I could unpack there, and we will. But I want to kind of give our audience a bit of a backstory on who David Leis is. You know, he's the president from the Frontier Center of Public Policy, which is amazing, and that is an incredible foundational.
It's a Canadian think tank that helps with policy and shaping Canada.
It's wonderful. Yes, absolutely. Thank you, David, for that. Because, it helps us shape the Canada that we have and want to have, which is awesome. We'll unpack that a bit. But he's also just a fantastic friend. You know, as he was kind of talking about, he knew Leon very well. And David Craig is the connection to how we met David Leis. And there's a bit of a story there, maybe for another time. The show's too short to maybe unpack that today. But
check out Real Citizen.
Yes, Real Citizen tonight. It airs tonight. We talked about that and what I want to say is it almost feels like God brought you into our life. And
it was very providential.
It really was.
I think so.
And so I think it was by no mistake whatsoever. And to summarize a very quick story, David Craig's dad, Scott, was on a plane, and you happened to be sitting next to him, and that was the connection that ended up just bringing this relationship together. And now you are a part of our Return to Reason team, and Leaders on the Frontier, which is an incredible show, brilliant for anyone who's wanting to understand what's happening in politics and Canada and our nation and understanding policy. I highly suggest to go there. But he is also one of our great friends, and to talk with him about anything is a pleasure, and you'll experience in that today. So welcome to the show. It's so good to have you here. We only have 24 minutes and 16 seconds left, and so the reason I want to quickly kind of jump in is I want to talk about Canada today. I want to talk about kind of the Judeo principles that have seemed to have been lost. And you said something just before the show started, is we were talking about the Bible verses that are inscribed in the Peace Tower in Ottawa. Yeah. And you said, you should see all of the principles that are there. They're inscribed everywhere if we will only remember. If we will only remember. And so I want to ask you that question. Before we ask you that question, though, I want to encourage everyone to call in. You know, we are live, and we have staff members ready and waiting to connect with you, which I love. We have real staff there to pray with you, to connect with you. If you'd like to just encourage or bring a prayer request, please do that. 1-800-815-6513. We're live, so please call in. For anyone who's joining us online as well, let us know where you're watching from. Connect with us, comment below, ask us questions. I got it live right here in front of me. I can see your questions right now, and I can ask David right here, right now. So I loved what you said about that. If we would only just remember, because it seems to be getting lost in our nation of Canada. So what is it that we must remember? What do we have to do here to kind of bring our Christian foundations back to this nation?
Oh man, that is a great question, Jeremy, and it's so great to see you and David here. I think the short answer is to remember the incredible vision that the founders had for the founding of this incredible country called Canada. Yeah. And I think it was an extraordinary vision. In fact, if you read the speeches of the founders, they're very inspiring. They had a vision that was based on principles and values, largely from a Judeo-Christian point of view, like the rule of law, the respect of freedom, the whole idea that every citizen should be respected as an image bearer from God. That was very much in their minds. It's not like they weren't thinking something else. And so we can't take those things for granted. In many ways, they assumed that people kind of knew. And that was kind of the way of thinking. And I think that's probably what's happened is our society's changed a lot, many ways for the better. But in other ways, we've forgotten these principles. And there's always been a vision of tolerance. But there's also a vision for having good governance where the people have the power. It's not like the state looks down on you and imposes things on you, but it was about empowering the people. And I think that's a beautiful vision. And quite frankly, it's one that, I mean, I'm a person of Christian faith, I work with people of all kinds of backgrounds, including other faiths, but for me, it's about empowering and respecting that people are all made in the image of the divine.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And a lot of, as I was kind of doing some digging here, a lot of the founding principles seem to be pointing to that. Like, David, you mentioned that the Psalms verse from sea to sea is inscribed in the Peace Tower.
Yes.
I began to search which other verses are there, and I want to read this for anyone who's watching. I did not know this, but Psalm 72:8, this is the verse that's inscribed in the Peace Tower in Ottawa. It says, "He shall have dominion also from sea to sea." It's inscribed above the archway, symbolizing Canada's vastness and unity under God.
It's also on our coat of arms too.
Yeah, which is
and
so cool.
I want to emphasize, who is he?
Yeah. For
And
sure.
he shall have dominion.
right.
Well, it talks
Yeah.
about this Canada, the foundation being built under sovereign rule of God. That's where our foundational principles
so
are.
incredible.
Right? Yeah.
And you know that Canada Day was called Dominion Day.
That's right.
Yeah.
For a reason, because it all referenced back to that language. So what we have going on is, I think, an effort to try to change or forget that history. And I think that's wrong.
Yeah.
We need to remember that history. We need to also change and adapt to traditions. But like I got my passport the other week.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I was not impressed by the stick people. They got rid of the Vimy Ridge,
Okay.
you know, as we come up on
Yes.
Remembrance Day,
Remembrance Day, yeah.
right? The sacrifice that people made. So we've inherited a legacy, this incredible legacy. So let us renew together those kinds of principles, because that's what allows us. And I know I'm not trying to sound cheesy here, but those principles have allowed us to thrive. That's why we've had a tradition where we've had not only this unique combination of freedoms, freedom to worship, freedom to use your property, within a sense of rule of law, but also to prosper and to be able to thrive as a society.
Yeah, for sure. And do you think that those things like Vimy Ridge being taken out of the passport is an intentional thing? Like they're trying to be politically correct? Or what do you think's happening with that?
I think it's very intentional. I could give you literally hundreds of examples where there are efforts made by some in the government who very much want to edit, block, or frankly forget our history. And this is wrong. Like you think of the passport, the previous one, you had storytelling. Like storytelling is very important, who we look up to. So they've taken away people like Terry Fox, people like Agnes MacPhail, who fought for women's rights to vote. I mean, there's all kinds of stories of Canadians that have inspired generations of people, and we can't forget that. Otherwise, we forget who we are.
Yeah, and that we cannot do that. That's why I really wanted to talk about this today, because in what we do here at the Miracle Channel is we're constantly, it's of course our faith. But when I think about the country we're in, I'm going, we must save this country. We must proclaim the faith of Jesus to people. We must, like we've done a number of episodes this last week talking about how Christians must take their job back. And it's spurred on a lot of conversations with you and I, David, just about like challenging us to feed the hungry, to help those who don't have jackets and cold. And what we have Christmas coming up and winter coming upon us, to just say like Christians, get busy, get to work. And that's why, as you were just on our show with Citizen, is as citizens, we need to take our job back too. Like to be a citizen that's actually actively involved, voting, understanding policy, knowing what parts to take place, not just complaining. I see a lot of complaining online, but very few people, when you ask them, are you involved? Are you on the educational school board? Are you doing anything? Almost always it's no. And then when you mix that in with, I believe there, as you said, like being Christians, that we have an evil force opposing Judeo-Christian principles and trying to wipe it out. And so when you see these things get pulled off, you're going, well, yeah, of course they're trying to wipe it out because it's in the enemy's interest.
Exactly. I think those are very powerful themes, Jeremy. And I always look at this and think, God has granted us many gifts in our lives, including the authority and order here on earth, that we can live in a society that's peaceful, right? That's a real gift. A lot of societies have paid heavy prices of violence and conflict. So we have this kind of understanding of principles, the wisdom that have allowed us to work together like a team as citizens, where we have our obligations. And citizenship is not for the passive, it's an active sport, to use that analogy. So maybe sometimes we've taken that for granted too much. We've been too silent. We need to speak up and be involved as we encourage for everybody.
Yeah.
Well, I think as also people, we are believers in what Jesus Christ and His Word stands for, and having a nation. And if you look at the inception of Canada, at the time, you've got the United States, which is approximately 100 years into their history already, and a nation that's founded on God. And our forefathers wanted to have a nation that rivaled that in the sense of, we want our nation to be founded upon the principles, the Judeo-Christian principles, which throughout history, if you do a case study on countries that are built on these principles, you see the elevation of all people. You see equality between male and female and races. You see poverty being wiped out because you have these principles that end up lifting and elevating people. And that's what our country is based on. That's what brought us here. But that, I think if we're not doing our jobs as, you mentioned citizens, but also as Christians who believe, I'm not saying you have to forcefully convert people. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about standing up for the principles that you believe in, the principles that are actually founded in the Word of God that have made Canada what we are. And when people forget, right, where we've come to, you forget about the sacrifice people have made, like you're talking about Vimy Ridge, or these things become, it's almost like too long amount of peace. People get lackadaisical and they sit back and they forget where they've come from, and all of a sudden that allows for this stuff to creep in, which I think as soon as you start forgetting where we come from, you forget what's written on the Peace Tower at Parliament Hill, you forget all these things, now it leaves way for crazy stuff to jump in, which will deteriorate a nation. So, like, speaking up about what you believe is so vital as well. Yes, we believe Jesus is Lord, but we also believe the way that the Bible says to live, we should live.
Well,
right?
you know what? When I think about this on a very micro level, is in my home, when my son or daughter does something wrong, what do? I'll go, that's not who you are. I'll reference how he has been, who he is, and what he just did is not aligning with that.
Yes.
And that's, I think, the power of remembering, is going, no. This is who we are. These are our values. This is not allowed in this environment.
Right.
And it kind of pushes it out. Like Leon would always talk about how, like, the best coach is an incredible team. And when a team's so good that the coach hardly has to speak, because the team will push out anybody who's not pulling the weight, training as hard, eating the right diet, because the team will do it. And that's why I see almost citizenships. We have prime ministers, elected officials, and members of parliament, but if the citizens are the crack team, then the culture will push out anything that doesn't align with the culture.
Yeah, I think you're onto something, Jeremy, in the sense that it behooves everyone to remember and to have it not only in our mind but our heart, so that we know that what the truth is. We know the importance of these principles, like the rule of law. No one's above it or below it. And we respect each other as truly special people. Every person in this country is special. And I just marvel at how some don't agree with that. They want to treat people like they're tools or instruments to be used for cynical power, or impose their vision of truth on other people in a way that I think is doing a lot of harm to a lot of people, including our children. I was just reading an amazing analysis about depression or mental health among young people. Well, is it any wonder what we're teaching them? We're teaching them that there is no truth in schools, or you can just flip your gender or whatever. Gosh, people need stability. They need love, and they also need truth, though.
And truth is confrontational. It will be uncomfortable. There will be things where it's wrestling and you're kind of iron sharpening iron. That's not a pleasant thing. Iron sharpening iron. And that's the nature of truth. I want to spit out a few more of these verses here, because I really want to show everyone doing it. I didn't know this. This is brand new to me. Another verse that's inscribed in the Peace Tower is Psalm 72:1. Give the kingdom thy judgments, O God, and thy righteousness unto the king's son. Proverbs 29:18. Where there is no vision, the people perish. Oh, we could talk about that all day. John 15:13. Greater love hath no man than this, than a man that lay down his life for his friends. This is inscribed in our buildings in Ottawa. Like, It brings me incredible joy to know that. I'm going to probably be talking about this a lot more. I'd love to get photos of all those things too, because I want to start letting people know. Like,
Did you say Ephesians 6:13 as well?
No.
That's also
Is it?
inscribed in there,
Wow.
which is therefore take up the whole armor of God that you may be able to withstand the evil day, and having done all, guess what? To stand firm.
Stand. Oh my
That's
gosh.
also inscribed. This is wonderful to know all that.
That's really, I had no clue. Like you said, it makes me wonder how many things I don't even, when we say remember, I have, there's many things I just don't know. Never heard it.
Yeah.
Like, you know, in our means of communication and social media, storytelling is one of the greatest, it is the greatest single form of communication, I believe, is if storytelling is done right. But I don't even know where to look for it or where to get it. And that's why when we were talking about bringing you on the show, a joking thing I often say is that you're a walking encyclopedia, which I love though, because we'll go for dinner sometimes. And like, I think last time we went to a steakhouse and had you, I think we closed the place down. We were there for 4 hours because it's just pulling out the history of what Canada is and where we're going and what we have to do. And you were actually an elected official. And that's something that I love hearing the stories about you is that. But how did that, I'm very curious about this because we don't have much time, how did that go with your faith in being an elected official to represent all the people who elected you, but also trying to intertwine the morals of your faith?
You know, it was a life moment for me. I was a very young official. I got involved in politics at the ripe age of 19. I was the youngest official at that time in Canada. But it was just incredible. I was so touched and humbled that a community would look to a young person like myself to do it. And ultimately, for me, it was all about listening and learning, but serving. Yeah. If I had the right attitude of serving my community, I dealt with some very difficult issues, and I found myself just really heartened. There's so many great people in this country, like really good hearts. But we need to celebrate them and remember that kind of spirit, and we'll do really well as a nation. But we've got some major challenges that we're facing right now. But for me, it was a really great time of service.
For sure. And in what the country is facing right now, it seems it's hard to trust even what's being said on the news, one party versus the other. Even I was listening to a podcast yesterday with I won't say who, but it was what I was listening to was just so divisive because anything that was on the opposing party was just demonized as evil, crazy, nuts.
Yes.
And it's so. How do we handle that? How do we find the truth? How do we try to decipher what's happening here? Because it seems like there's an impending election in the future. It seems like, and so how do we make decisions as Christians to make the most educated decision on how do we steer this country forward? How do we vote?
Well, Jeremy, that's a terrific question. We've got to be very informed as citizens. Yeah. We've got to be very tight with our family. You are naive, I'm sorry, if you believe that you should let your kids just go on social media apps that feed them with garbage and nonsense. Wow. So you need to teach them. And you need to not be a passive when it comes to your kids' education. So there's a lot of things one needs to be very active, involved in, I think, as a caring parent, let alone a caring grandparent or whatever your role is. But I would tell you this, when it comes to our society, there's really two visions that are emerging. Ones that are respectful of our past traditions and wisdom and truth, and others that believe that it's their truth. And it's their prerogative to be, I call it sometimes half facetiously, the good and the great. People who believe they are above us and that they think that they can somehow, frankly, govern on our behalf and they know what's best for us. I think that's a very patronizing perspective of people, because we were created all by God, and this is my personal opinion, and we're all equal.
Yeah. Well, I heard a pastor say, and I'm unpacking it, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, saying that we're in a kind of a war of globalism versus nationalism. What would you say to that?
There's a lot of truth to that. There's a lot of parties who want to move power to a world level where they can scale up their power across the globe. And the punchline is not only can they have more control, but no accountability. One of the beauties of the founding of this nation with those inscriptions is that it signaled a wise structure of governance where there would be power that would be exerted, but the people's voice would be heard, but in an accountable way that would provide a check and balance on people. We know that human nature has good and evil sides to it, and we all need checks on each other.
Yeah.
Love and truth working together. And for those people who want power, Lord Acton once said, power corrupts, unlimited power corrupts absolutely.
Yeah.
And this is a wise points of, like, if you just look at scripture, that's through it all over the place. You need to be humble and serving ultimately, I think, a higher power, not ourselves.
For sure. I love even what you said about you're ignorant, or no, what'd you say? If you're allowing your, not ignorant.
Naive, perhaps?
Sorry, you're
Yes.
naive if you're allowing your children just to be led by whatever social media platform there is. And that's something like I'm stepping in, my eldest is 10 years old. I'm stepping into the realm of, can I get a phone? Can I get a social media platform and this? And you're going, oh, and so you try to introduce them gently and trying to figure out this, but then I'm not going to get her a phone. Probably, I don't know what age yet, but it's not going to be for a while. Because I see the propaganda, I see the twisting of words and stories and lies. Like it's just it's crazy, and it's got my guards up. Like,
I agree. And what's so amazing about that, this morning at breakfast, I asked two 20-year-olds who were serving us, by the way, which media app do you spend the most time on? She said TikTok. Really? So I could tell you all about TikTok. It's a Chinese app. But anyways, the point is we've got to be very conscious and discerning about this. Why don't we have really good civics classes in our schools these days? I mean, this is a great opportunity to renew our country.
Well, part of it too with the phones is you have this addictive nature where you see kids and young kids who are actually get extremely addicted to the point of when you pull it away, it's like the world falls apart, and it's a distraction from all the other things that are going on, right? I know with Gabriel, we're trying to be very, like he's 2.5, he's not getting a phone. Yeah. But even with screens or shows, like Danielle and I, like we love putting worship music on in the house, and Gabriel will often have dance parties, but we've now actually moved away from putting worship on the TV in terms of YouTube videos, and now resorted to putting it on a speaker so we can sing and play, because we're noticing the screen of being addicted. He's a different kid when he has a screen, and so we're very careful when he gets it, how much he gets it, because we've seen it's so funny. When Gabriel goes to Grandma and Grandpa's house, like, right, Grandma's rules, that they'll sing and worship together, which is wonderful, right? And then you see that, but they use a TV screen a lot. And then we bring it back. It's like, okay, it's amazing to see the difference that can have. And you amplify that with teenagers. Nonstop on your phone. And it's just something you have to be very aware of, because I think it distracts from all the other things you need to learn and be a part of, and what can actually help you grow.
Right on. You know, years ago, there was a guy, you may know his name. His name was Steve Jobs, who invented the iPhone, his team. And when asked, do you give your kids an iPhone, a smartphone? He said, absolutely not. It would destroy their minds, their ability to think. So we've got to really wake up. Yeah, he said that. So you've got to really realize that people need to realize, like, I'm just curious with the audience. What do they think? Did you give your little kids iPhones? I hope not.
Yeah, let us know. If you're watching right now, I'm very curious. What do you think is the right age for kids to have iPhones or apps? Or when do you introduce them or not? Do you put parameters or not? I don't know the perfect answer here, because it's very difficult. I know over sheltering is also not fantastic, because then the moment they get any exposure, they overreact. So that balance is very difficult. We're nearly out of time here, David, and so I kind of want to ask you one last question. And before I do that, I just want to encourage anyone to continue to call 1-800-815-6513. We're going to be live again tomorrow, so if you have prayer requests, maybe we'll pray for them tomorrow, but please send them in, connect with us, and if you're online, comment as well. There's a number of people watching from Winnipeg, from Manitoba. Welcome, good to have you guys here. For those who are just joining us, is a great friend of ours, David Leis, just an incredible wealth of knowledge. And as we close out the show here, what would you say to Christians maybe who want to make a difference, want to get involved, feel like maybe doom and gloom, helpless, don't know what I can do? What can one individual Christian person do?
They can do a lot. Get involved in your community. Pardon me, be tight with your family.
Yeah, I love that point.
Teach them wisdom, the word. I like the idea of building up your church, right? These are very important parts of the history of our country, has been places of worship that allow people to look after, take care of people. Ministries are very important. And I would say get involved in your community. Pay attention to what's going on in your community. Are there good policies happening in your community, or are there ones that are disempowering your community? Pay attention to the words that people use. Are they attacking people like ad hominem attacks, or are they talking about issues? If they're doing the former, why are they doing that?
Yeah, that's very interesting. And I feel I love the idea of taking care of your family. Like to me, I'm going, we were just discussing politics before all this, and we had a show discussing all that. And we talked about how actually one of the most powerful forms of government is actually the local government.
Yes.
Because it all stems from local. If all the locals have an idea, it eventually goes up to municipal, provincial, federal, and it works its way up. But the greatest form of government, I believe, is family.
Yes,
A great
indeed.
family.
Yes.
I think that's the single greatest form of government, so that we can lead our families appropriately. But let me even take it even smaller, is you as an individual. I think the greatest lessons I learned from Leon, watching him so closely as not only pastor, leader, boss, but father-in-law, but as a father, is he fathered his family so incredibly intentionally.
Right on.
He was in the Word. He showed us that he was reading. He wrestled with concepts.
Right
He
on.
confronted truth when it wasn't truthful, or things when it needed confrontation with love. And
He showed it in his action too,
yeah.
right? It
So
wasn't just that,
intentional.
but
Right
he was
on.
always acting upon it and how he led, which is you could learn so much from just taking that step of action and not just the thought behind it, right?
For sure, for sure. You know, I just the other day switched to reading my Bible physically in my home, because I so conveniently read it on my iPad.
for you.
And so I changed it physically to this, and maybe this is oversharing, but I was reading a verse and I didn't want to put it down, and I had to go to the washroom, so I brought the Bible to the washroom and I was reading it, and Billy goes, "What are you doing, Dad?" I'm like, "Reading the Bible." "The Bible?" And she goes, "Close it." And I'm like, "No." But it was just my 4-year-old brain going, I'm showing her. I need to show my family.
Good for you.
And it's I think it's so vital. So for all of you guys at home, I pray that this has kind of encouraged you today, especially to me, the verses in the Peace Tower in Ottawa and the foundations of our Judeo-Christian principles here in our nation is so incredible. Share that. Talk about it. Did you know? Tell someone. And I pray that you join us again tomorrow. It's been amazing. Call the number on your screen. Phone lines will continue to be open. God bless you. And David, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
God bless you guys. See you same time tomorrow.
Thrive is only made possible by the generous donations of people like you. 100% of your donation goes towards ministry efforts. Call today and make a significant impact in the lives of Canadians. Through your financial investment, you are a missionary to the world. Phone lines will remain open for a limited time. Connect with us now by calling 1-800-815-6513 or visit miraclechannel.ca/thrive to leave your comments, prayer requests, and praise reports. Together, let's thrive.